Do you have your shirt on?
Last I checked, I did. Yes. Why?
Do you have your shirt on?
Black Reds Radio, episode 5, 14 questions with Tom Fay.
Hello, Reds fans. This is Mike from WhackReds.com. You're listening to Whack Reds Radio, Episode 5, 14 Questions with Cincinnati Reds beat writer John Fay. How you doing today, John?
Good.
First of all, I want you to pitch your blog over at Cincinnati.com for me. A lot of people follow your blog. You do daily updates. What do you want our listeners to know about your site?
Well, I try to get things up there as quickly as possible. Today, Dusty Baker talked a little bit about Aaron Harang, and within about a half an hour after that, I had it up there. So, it's basically from 3 o'clock on game days, you're going to have the latest stuff, and, all off season, I try to keep things updated.
How many years have you been writing for Cincinnati? How did you get into writing? And do you have any favorite memories of the Reds along the way?
I actually started writing when I was in high school. I went to high school here at Elder, and I, worked for the student paper, and then I went to the University of Dayton and worked for the student paper there, and eventually started part-time at the Enquirer when I was still in college, and then, worked a couple years in Middletown, but I've been at the Enquirer ever since. And I was the backup on the Reds from 97 to 2001, and I've been the main guy since 2001. Actually, my fondest memory didn't happen when I was on the beat. I was a sidebar guy in 1990 when they won the World Series, and that was the whole experience there was pretty incredible. I was fairly young in the business then, and it was just an interesting experience. I think it was probably one of the more shocking World Series that they've had, that we've had in the last 30 years or 40 years or whatever. So it was kind of cool to see that whole thing and kind of see this team that, I'd followed pretty closely that year that to kind of take the baseball world by surprise.
You get to travel with the team. That's
Yes.
got to be a lot of fun. Is there anything that the common fan doesn't see? And what would be the current mood of the clubhouse right now?
Well, right now they're in a pretty bad way. So, they're a little down, but I think the one thing you got to remember about baseball is there's a game pretty much every day. So they never get too down or too up. It's not like football where you lose and you've got 8 days to or 7 days to kind of deal with it. So, they lost last night. They got beat up pretty bad, but they're out today. And, if they win this game today against the Dodgers, it's a successful series. So I think they look at it that way, the players by and large, and it's much more of a business atmosphere than I think the average fan would probably know. Just from this is a job to these guys. I mean, the guys love to play the game, but they come, they get their work in. It's very businesslike. And I think that what fans it's hard to appreciate is just the travel part of it, is the grind of a 162 game season. I don't play, but I travel, and it wears you down. They played Florida Marlins in, I guess it was last Thursday. The game ended at near midnight. They flew to Pittsburgh and then had a game the next day. Where you're checking in your hotel and that kind of thing. So it's a long grind. I think that's the 162 game season is probably one of the hardest thing in sports to do, just because it beats you up physically and mentally.
All right, I got to ask you this. You get to spend some time with Marty Brennaman and Jeff Brantley in the booth. How is that, and why do they call you the loose cannon?
It's one of my best parts of the day. I mean, it's more with Marty. I'm in there and Jeff's in there, but it's, Marty and I kind of, it's his thing, and I've done it pretty much since I started the beat, and it's a lot of fun. Marty's a great guy to be around. He's an interesting guy. He's a funny guy. He loves to kid and get on you, but he's just he's one of the best things about being in the traveling party is he's a great guy to be around. And the loose cannon, that's something Jamie Ramsey hung on me, and it's all in fun. But I was the bank president, and now I'm the loose cannon, so I guess I have to live with that.
About a month ago, you wrote an article describing how Brandon Phillips didn't want to do an interview with you because you chose to highlight a few players before him. Is it hard being a writer? Is it hard to exempt your opinion? Describe how you deal with taking the heat of being a writer.
Well, the Brandon thing was it was something that happens to you occasionally, where a guy doesn't want to talk to you for one reason or another. And the only reason I wrote about that is I thought the reason was kind of it kind of told a little bit about Brandon, that he I think he's had some problems where he's lacked maturity in the way he's played the game. And I think that was a reflection of that, where it kind of showed a little jealousy toward other teammates, and really unfounded jealousy, because there were other guys that were more compelling stories. Scott Rowland signed the renegotiated deal in the off season. Joey Votto was coming off the year where he missed 32 games with anxiety problems, and those were two of the guys that I had talked to. I think Jay Bruce was the other, who was coming off a rough year. Brandon had a great year; he's a great player, but I just found that kind of odd, and I wrote about it, and I stand behind what I wrote about. I've had run-ins or problems with players before, but it was usually about something I wrote, and it usually blows over. Some of the nicer guys at times took exception to something I wrote, and you're around these guys a lot, and you write a lot, so it happens. It comes with the territory, but by and large, the team is really easy to get along with. A lot of good guys on the team, a lot of guys that are really good to work with. So, I have no complaints with anyone in the clubhouse, and not even Brandon. I mean, I don't want anyone to think I didn't like him or anything. I think, in that story I wrote about some of the things that happened last year, some of the incidents where he ignored a sign, where he didn't run out of ball, where he said his wrist was broken and it wasn't. It's just, I think those kind of things detract a little bit from what Brandon is as a player. And I think he's, as I said, I think he's a very good player. He's on borderline great. And I think when he overcomes those kind of things, I think you'll see this guy become one of the true elite players in the game.
I know he looks up to Barry Larkin. You were quoted saying that he didn't have 3 incidents like Brandon Phillips had in his 19-year career.
Yeah, I think, Barry had some issues, more with management, with a contract and that kind of thing. But he was a guy that played the game right. He played here 19 years, and I can't remember any time where somebody said he didn't hustle or play it the right way. He had the deal where he left the game early at the end of the season the one time with Jack McKeon. But other than that, I think on the field the guy always gave his best effort, and I don't question Brandon's effort most of the time, but I think he's a guy that kind of gets down on himself every once in a while and takes it onto the field.
Edson Volquez was recently suspended for 50 games for failing a major league drug test. What are your thoughts on the suspension? A lot of people are saying it's not going to hurt the Reds. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it hurts the Reds, basically, because he's going to serve the time. By the time he's ready to pitch, he'll be eligible to pitch. I think, for Edison, he's a young guy who this is one of the first years he's making decent money. I think when you talk about 1/3 of his salary, basically, that's a pretty good hit. When you look at some of the things guys do around other sports and what they get fined for him, his explanation was that he took some kind of fertility drug to help conceive a child. I have no reason not to believe him. If I had to make a list of the 25 guys who I would think were the least likely to take steroids, I'd put Edison pretty far up there, simply because he's not a huge workout guy. He's not a huge muscular guy, but he admitted he made a mistake. And I think what players have to do in this situation is they can't take anything, prescribed or not, unless they know it's approved. And I think if he had gone through that step, he would have found out that what this was probably on the banned substance list. So I feel bad for the guy if that's how it went down, but I think the players realize they have to play by these rules, and they're pretty strict.